Our first set of presentations is from our user community involved in conservation land management. These organizations will share how they've been able to use GIS in effectively managing and safeguarding designated protected areas, either as the lead organizations or contributors to these efforts. I therefore welcome Irene Muduka from the Nature Conservancy Africa, Elizabeth Naro from Africa People and Wildlife, and Richard Bilini from TANAPA, Tanzania National Parks, to share how ACGES supports their efforts to support informed and timely conservation and land management decisions. Welcome, Irene.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to share one of our exciting projects in Loisaba, where we are using ACGES solutions for conservation to help protect and manage the conservancy. My name is Irene Mudoka. I work for the Nature Conservancy as the GIS coordinator and analyst. And I'll briefly mention about TNC. The Nature Conservancy's mission is to conserve the lands and the waters on which all life depends on. And we have a long history in protecting lands, rivers, lakes, and oceans through projects on the ground. We work in 72 countries and territories. Out of that, 38 we have direct conservation impacts working on the ground with the communities. We also partner with organizations and governments through 34 of those countries and territories we work in. Now, I'm focused mainly in Africa and I support the Africa region. And I want to mainly focus on Kenya, where we have work going on within the region. And I'll zoom in into Loisaba Conservancy, which is a 57 acres piece of land and forms a critical elephant corridor. And so there the importance of conserving that ecosystem. It is also a home to many endangered species, including gravy zebras, and it's a good sanctuary for wildlife, and therefore the importance of having a strong anti-poaching team. And so we had a need to have an integrated system for managing this important protected area in Loisaba. And we wanted a system that would help improve and automate field data collection and operations to ensure that there's efficient decision-making from the decisions, from the managers all the way to the rangers in the field. We also wanted a system that would help collect, process, and disseminate information in near real time to ensure that all the resources are captured and the management is able to tell everything the way it is. We also were interested in a system that would help monitor closely any poaching threats and illegal activities that would be taking place within that landscape. Of our importance, main importance is having a central database that would take care of all the historical data and the current field data being collected from the field. Because we work with the local communities, we also wanted to make sure that this integrated system would be easy to use and access and should have an efficient way of linking field data collection, processing it, and having quick decisions made between the field work and the management in the office. And therefore, ACGES Solutions for Conservation came into play. This ACGES Solutions for Conservation is designed to serve protected area management, and I'll briefly call it PAM. It is deployed on ArcGIS Online. It is a cloud-based system, and therefore it is easy to access with any device, whether in the field, in the office, and any application. And at this point, I would want to greatly thank the founder and the president of Esri, Jack and Laura Denchamond, for the generous donation of a 10-year grant to ensure that we continue taking care of our resources and the assets in the field. And this is already revolutionizing the way we are working and even changing the way we previously worked. So thank you so much. We did take advantage of this platform, these ArcGIS Solutions for Conservation, and we enabled and deployed it for Loisaba. It is already hosted on ArcGIS Online, which is a cloud-based system. And we're also taking advantages of the other applications that come with it. We're taking advantage of the Survey 123 form. We have already customized that to use for the Loisaba needs, and is also expandable to the level of the attributes and the needs that you have, all the information that you'd want to pick from the field, it's easier to adjust, update, and upload it into the smartphones. And therefore, we are using this Survey 123 form to order, to publish, and to collect observations from the field. We are also taking advantage of the other application, which is the Quick Match, to help collecting tracks as the patrol teams go into the field. And this does help us know which areas have not been reached and how do we want to ensure that we share the resources equally within the entire landscape. Now, given that this system is easy and very comfortable to use, the patrol teams get to use it comfortably, and they're able to patrol and collect data offline. And once they get online, because it uses a basic internet connection, that they're able to upload the observations to the system on ArcGIS online. Now, the snapshot below shows just as a piece of one of the pages that we have created for the form, and this shows the ranger picking observations about the wildlife, or it could be injured wildlife or carcasses. They input the species, they take pictures of the condition of such a species. And then once they're done filling in the form, because it's easy and straightforward, then they connect the internet and they send to the online system. Now, all the data that is sent, it feeds into the Loisaba dashboard. This dashboard has really helped in the entire management of the protected area. It has enabled access, querying and analyzing of the observations, and being able to produce results and reports within a very short time. And everything that has been observed or taken from the field is visualized from the dashboard display. And as you can see here, the security team member is assessing the information that is on the dashboard just to be able to make sure that on the ground, everything is okay and there are no areas where they need to put any security measures. I'll dive deeper into the dashboard, which I believe it's the Loisaba backbone of the operations. And the good thing with this dashboard, or the good thing with the dashboard application, is it's customizable, it's expandable, and you customize it in a way that it fits each user case's needs. And for Loisaba needs, we wanted to see the total patrols that have been patrolled within a certain period of time. And for this case, we are looking at the last 2 months, the total patrols which were done, the coverage in terms of what percentage counting within the landscape. We also wanted to know the distances covered by the different transport types, by foot, how long did the patrols go, or how much effort was put by vehicle. And of course, that does also tally with the observations submitted, and also how much effort was put through collecting the observations using the plane. We also have a tab that we created for the map. Now, this one just gives you a easy, quick visualization of the data sets, and you're able to see which areas are more concentrated and which areas have not been touched. And so then you can reallocate resources to those regions just to make sure that all the regions within the landscape are covered. And so we were also able to, in this particular dashboard, we were also able to configure some of the elements to show the efforts of the different ranger posts, and these would also go into rewarding their efforts, really, and also showing the summary sites in terms of the wildlife sightings and all the information that we collect from the field. I would want to draw your attention to the wildlife sighting panel, or really the panel to the right top corner. It is an important panel that we wanted to make sure that it captures all the information that is collected from the field, and it summarizes. In case we have a meeting or we want to share this report with the donors, then we'll just pick this summarized information and share. It summarizes on some of the important elements that, or the key elements that Loisaba is interested in, starting with wildlife sightings. The observations show the carcasses which were observed during the field work, and this is within the last 2 months. And so we see that there were 8 carcasses, and it summarizes on also the species which were affected, and also gives more details about the causes of the death. Could it be natural death? And mostly from this, it shows 62% of the deaths were caused by natural or causes. Illegal, it's more investigated, and then the management could have given decisions to contribute to the death of some of these species. It also talks about the injuries during the patrols. The rangers, they come around some of the species which are injured, and they capture that, and it's also filtered into the dashboard, and you're able to tell within the last 2 months how many injuries were reported, so that now the management can continue monitoring the recovery rates of these species. It also overall captures the information that has been collected from the field regarding the species observed. I also want to mention about the next tab, the human activities tab. And this one talks more about the illegal activities that are taking place within the ecosystem, where unauthorized people would come in either for illegal grazing or just trespassing or poaching. And so this information is also captured for security reasons. And from this dashboard, you can, in a summary format, tell the last 2 months, a lot of trespassing has taken place, a lot of illegal grazing has taken place, and there are snares really, the unauthorized people planning some of these activities. And also you can tell from the security team, they've been able to identify around 31 people. And out of that, you can tell most of them were trespassing, but some of them were doing illegal grazing and also poaching and bushmeats. And so this information is critical for making decisions to ensure that security is tightened within that region. Of more importance is the lion monitoring aspect of Loisaba. And so I'll briefly talk about that. And this is more of taking stock of the lions in the field, in the landscape, to ensure that their conditions, their environment is still secure and safe for the lions to thrive. And so you can see here when the data comes from the field, it's already summarized into the different families of the lions. And so you can also tell from the information that was collected from the field, what was the status at that time? Were the lions sleeping? Were they walking? Were they drinking water? Or exactly what were they doing? This is generally important to know the landscape and the ecosystem and the environment for the lions, and to be able to know what is the state currently and be able even to predict in the future. I'll also take you through the animal problems tab. This is more of the human wildlife conflicts, the reports which have come within the last 2 months rather. And so you can tell within the last 2 months, elephants have been notorious in causing some of the human wildlife conflicts. And it's important to get this information so that you can know how also to work with the communities around and also involve the government to ensure that tight security is put between the wildlife and the communities, and to ensure that human and community or human and wildlife live coexist together safely without any issues. I'll also take you through another tab which is also important, which is the patrol distances and patrol by transport type. You can tell briefly from the last 2 months how has the patrol gone in terms of the 3 types of transport that we use in Loisaba? How was the work done with the planes flying around and monitoring the ecosystem? How has it been with the patrols on foot? Do we need more patrols using vehicles? And so you can do all these analyses and get to know which areas as well need more of which type of transport. The next thing I'll talk about within the Loisaba dashboard, which is very important, is the use of the filters. For our case, it has been important, it continues to be important to know how much information is coming from which ranger post, from which security block. And so we filtered this information, or continue to filter it using the ranger post. And so you can use all the posts, or you can choose each post and get to know within the last 1 month or the last 1 week, how much effort has that post put to ensure that the region they are mandated to take care of is actually being patrolled. And so we've been using this filter to also get information about the observations which are submitted like yesterday or a week before, or you can actually customize it. If you want for specific days, you can customize, and then it filters and shows within the dashboard. This has been, I would say, the meat of the entire project, where the managers come in and they're able to see within a few minutes what has been going on within a certain period of time and help make decisions moving forward to ensure that the wildlife and the elephant corridors are not being tampered with. Now, we've been using this solution for some time now. We are still using it. And I must say that, just for my closing slide here, I must say that this conservation solution continues to improve the way we collect field work, the way we collect data from the field, doing operations, and helping the management make efficient and quick decisions. And it has greatly improved the collection, processing, and dissemination of information in near real time. And this is very critical, and especially where you would need more resources pumped into a specific area within the landscape. We wanted a system that would help closely monitor the poaching threats, and this is proving to be the system, and it is so far helping monitor any poaching threats and illegal activities, and so security is able to reorganize themselves and deploy on time. It has also provided a platform to ensure that the central database is rich, it has quality data, and it can host both historical and incoming field data sets. And being an integrated system, it has well linked the field data collection, processing, and the quick dissemination of this information and decisions. And overall, it has improved the management of the Loisaba Conservancy. And based on the lessons we've learned from this, applying this system and working on the field, we plan to extend the deployment of the ArcGIS solutions for conservation to other landscapes within the country and also outside the country in the other African regions where we work in. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Pauline, and hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Narrow, the head of the M&E and GIS department at African People and Wildlife. I'd like to thank Esri for giving us the opportunity to share our work with you all today during the African Conservation Summit. Today, I'll be talking about how we at African People and Wildlife find the balance between tradition and technology to foster innovation in conservation science. So African People and Wildlife is based in northern Tanzania, with our headquarters at the Noloholo Environmental Center on the southeastern border of Tarangire National Park. We were founded in 2005 by Dr. Lely Lichtenfeld to turn the wildlife conservation around and understand environmental issues from the local point of view. Northern Tanzania is a biodiversity hotspot with some of Africa's most iconic protected areas. But in Tanzania, these protected areas aren't fenced, which allows wildlife to roam freely along natural migratory routes that cross through human-dominated landscapes. This means that 92% of the rangelands, which you can see shaded here in brown, are shared between people, livestock, and wildlife. Naturally, this freedom of movement increases the likelihood of human-wildlife conflict. Reducing this conflict is a primary goal for African People and Wildlife, and the use of geospatial technology through the ArcGIS platform has furthered our work in 3 main program areas, which I'll walk through today. The first program I'll talk about is the Human-Wildlife Conflict Prevention Program. On the map, you'll see the locations of our living walls, or fortified cattle corrals that help prevent lions, leopard, and hyena from attacking pastoralists' livestock at night. The next program I'll discuss is the Natural Resource Stewardship Program. Here you can see the pastures that we monitor and manage in green and their locations in critical wildlife corridors. And lastly, I'll talk about our Conservation Enterprise Program. You can see the overlay of beehive zones on the map now and how our programs are overlapped on the landscape in a visualization of our holistic approach to conservation. All of the landscape shots in this presentation depict lands outside of formal protected areas and demonstrate what we aspire to, which is healthy, connected landscapes for both people and wildlife. So when APW was founded in 2005, and for the first decade of our work, we collected data on human-wildlife conflict incidents through paper forms filled out by local Maasai warriors, whose traditional role in a community is to protect people from livestock, or people and livestock from predators. These warriors for wildlife provided invaluable data on conflict trends and helped design the Living Walls program, where living coniferous trees form the posts of a cattle corral that we reinforce with chain link fencing to create an impenetrable barrier. By 2016, we shifted to the mobile data collection app ODK Collect, but we were still running analytics and visualizations manually or through Excel. But then in 2019, we were granted access to the ArcGIS platform through the Solutions for Protected Area Management program. This really revolutionized the way we collect data in the field and provided a platform for automated output analysis, giving us more time to conduct outcome and impact level program evaluations that require more qualitative data. So now the dashboard app does most of the simple analytics for us in real time, since it's linked to a live Survey 123 form for conflict. For instance, the pie chart here in the center shows the percentage of conflict incidents by predator type. You can see that hyena, labeled in their Swahili name, Fisi, are responsible for over 70% of attacks on livestock. By selecting that slice of the chart, the rest of the dashboard filters by hyena attacks, and we can see in the pie chart to the right that over 60% of these conflicts occur at the boma, not out in the rangelands. Then here at the bottom, we can look at the conflicts by political district and see that, for instance, in Babati district, which is now filtered in the map as well, there is significantly more conflict at the boma. So this gives us a better sense of where to prioritize building living walls to reduce conflict overall. And now lastly, we can use the ARC Online one-click heat map function to convert those conflict incident points into an easily visualized conflict hotspot map. So in Babati district here, again, you can see the conflict concentration is high. And we now use this feature to prioritize requests for living walls in these areas where the impact will be hopefully the greatest. We now have built almost 1,400 living walls that improve landscape connectivity with over 180,000 trees. They secure the livelihoods of over 17,000 rural people in northern Tanzania. And they protect a population of about 500 lions from revenge killing. After having success in transitioning the human-wildlife conflict program to the ArcGIS platform, we thought that the same tools could be useful by community decision makers as well. So we transitioned our rangeland monitoring protocols to Survey 123. By monitoring the grazing quality of critical pastures each month, pastoral communities are better able to manage rangelands to ensure that grass resources are sustained throughout the dry season. We worked with the grazing committees in each village to select plots for monthly monitoring, which you can see here on the map. Then 2 local pastoralists from each community measure grass height, vegetation cover, and a few other pasture quality metrics every 5 meters along a 100-meter transect. So that's 20 samples to help the grazing committees make informed management decisions. But soon after deploying the Survey 123 form, the village grazing committees expressed their need for more data on invasive species trends. It's a really useful topic for them. So we created a field guide of common invasives and worked with our rangeland monitors throughout northern Tanzania to include the locally relevant names of each plant. The slide here is one page of the field guide showing a species in the Solanaceae that is frequently seen in these rangelands and is thought to be expanding dangerously. We updated the Survey 123 form to include a related table where the monitors select each invasive species present in the 20 samples along each transect for every plot. But after we published the Survey 123 form, we had some trouble displaying multiple species on one chart, since the question was initially written as a multiple select. We were able to create an arcade expression that sorted, filtered, and calculated the frequency of each species and populated that frequency back into the parent data set. And once the frequencies are back in the parent data, it's easy enough to link the feature layer to a dashboard and create a multiple series serial chart. And here's the final result, showing a comparison of multiple different invasive species frequencies changing over time. So when added into a dashboard for each village, you can see how the invasive species chart at the top compares to the grass height in the middle and the pastoralist's perception of grazing quality here at the bottom. And now we've actually begun to see a lot of the village grazing committees using these dashboards in real time to make decisions about when to rest pastures, graze other pastures, or implement invasive species removal techniques. So in addition to the ArcGIS online platform, we began using ArcPro last year for our beekeeping program. This first map shows the locations of beehives surrounding Tarangire National Park that women's groups harvest honey from and sell in local markets. Since the trees can't be cut down if they support local enterprise, the beehives provide some protection for shade trees and pastures. But the hives also may help restore larger portions of rangeland. Since honeybees will travel about 5 kilometers from their hive for nectar, and they're more likely to select native species as fodder. So in ArcPro, we generated a 5-kilometer buffer around each hive tree to show the area where the bees may pollinate native species. Then we remove the initial hive points and get an estimated 439,000 acres of pasture that we think are positively impacted by the presence of bees. Luckily, we can test this assumption using our existing rangeland monitoring plots that I described in the last section. The gray squares here represent rangeland monitoring plots in several villages where we also support a beekeeping initiative. So by comparing invasive species frequency trends between plots within the beehive zones of influence and those without, we can get a better sense of if and how beehives are actually impacting the landscape. And most importantly, we can use these data to strategically place beehives in degraded pastures as a restoration technique. And now we've expanded beyond this to using ArcGIS Hub. So we're able to share data and disseminate results with communities and even higher level government officials to facilitate evidence-based decision-making. For instance, this hub has been configured for one of our 4 partner districts, Monduli, where we work with 13 villages in the human-wildlife conflict, rangeland management, and women's enterprise programs. So rather than navigating through the Arc Online platform or having to individually sort various dashboards to see the relevant data, a district level user can view her hub, which has already been tailored to meet her needs. In this pilot version of the hub, we included a few metrics that show a district level manager some basic outputs of our programs. Numbers of community members hired for various monitoring efforts, numbers of human-wildlife conflicts responded to, kilograms of honey harvested, and so on. and some more specific metrics here for individual programs like living walls to prevent conflict with predators at bomas. Now, these metrics are generating using the summary statistics feature in Hub, and they pull directly from a feature layer created by a live Survey 123 form for living wall installations. That means these figures update automatically with no backend effort for us, and the user can see the progress of these programs in real time. Then, if someone at the district or even a higher level government official does want more specific information about any program, human-wildlife conflict here, for instance, she can scroll down in the Hub where dashboards are linked here through the gallery feature. And here, for instance, each village in Monduli district that participates in rangeland monitoring has its own dashboard, along with a district level dashboard that I'll open here. And this aggregates all of that village level data. So the dashboard is embedded right into the Hub, so the user has easy access. And she can now see an overview of the pasture quality data in the whole district. This tool can be so powerful for decision making when put directly into the hands of village and district level land managers. For instance, here, they can see how many pastures were open for grazing last month, as well as if there were any pastures grazed when they shouldn't have been, which also highlights that area here in the map by the flash feature. It shows which invasive species are the biggest threat for the district as a whole. Again, here's that Solanaceae. Or we can also sort by village to show where other invasive species might be a more localized threat. And lastly, we can see where critical pastures are inaccessible. So for instance, Oltukai village had 4 critical plots that were flooded last month. And by looking at these data collaboratively and at a district level, inter-village grazing agreements can be put in place to ensure that neighboring communities share pasture resources for the benefit of all. And having the data to back up these types of political negotiations can facilitate more informed and equitable decision-making for conservation. So I'd like to end with a thought from a Tanzanian colleague of mine who works closely with community decision makers on these types of issues. She says, in this ever-changing environment where technological tools can be so powerful, these data will allow us to put our partner communities at the forefront of conservation. So thank you all again for letting us share our work with you today, and we hope to meet again in person for next year's Esri African Conservation Summit. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having this opportunity. My name is Senior Conservation Officer Richard Raymond Mbilinyi, heading the GIS unit here in TANAPA headquarters. My topic tonight is the use of GIS technology in wildlife conservation. Experience is TANAPA. This is my overview. This will be my flow. Let me go direct. Tanzania is an independent country found in Africa, having an area of 945,203 square kilometers. 30% of that land is designated as protected areas. 10% only for that land is national parks. So you can see how national parks have big size of area. Tourists who are visiting Tanzania, 91% are visiting national parks. They are visiting just to offer them wildlife and nature-based tourism activities. TANAPA, this is Tanzania National Park, is a parastatal organization established in 1959 to protect and preserve areas designated as national parks for sustainable conservation. So you can see the main role of TANAPA is to protect. Though we are doing business, but we are protecting these national parks. Currently, we have 22 national parks covering an area of 104,661.48 square kilometers. This is the size of national parks that we have, and they are spread across various ecosystems and landforms ranging from savanna, forest, mountainous, and wetland. You can see from the map, these are the national parks with the green here. You can see these are the national parks are spread all over the country. So the sites that I've shown you, you can see the way they are. They are all over the country. TANAPA GIS unit. Let me talk a bit on TANAPA GIS unit. It was established in 2012. Full sponsor was TANAPA. The main goal was to ensure the day-to-day, to support the day-to-day operations, just to improve the operational outcomes. TANAPA has employed 5 permanent GIS staff. In 2012, when it was started, it employed only 3, but for now, it added 2 of them. So we have 5 in number. The aim for this GIS just to develop GIS capacity and deployment within the organization, to use GIS to support the organization in its role of protecting. GIS objective. As I've said from the previous, GIS in TANAPA is just to support. We are supporting protection so that we preserve our resources. We are supporting tourism just to enhance the tourism experience. So we are supporting the decision makers just to come up with a well decision and to plan and predict. So you can see how GIS in TANAPA has those objectives. Let me just go quickly because of time. Let me just go quickly to the TANAPA system workflows. You can see we are working with the zones. As I've told you, TANAPA has 22 national parks. So we have divided them into 4 zones. You can see here we have northern zone, we have southern zone, eastern zone, and western zone. And some of the zones have more than 10 parks. So you can see like western zone has 10 parks. So each zone have been placed with 1 officer, and in the headquarters, there is also 1 officer there whom here I'm speaking. I'm the one whom I'm heading this unit. Quickly, let me jump to the desktop workflow. This desktop workflow, we are using it also. You can see here we have Trimble GPS. People are collecting using this Trimble GPS, are capturing data, and then we need cable connection so that we can have those collected information. In here we have desktop license. That's why we are buying them so we can analyze, we can create geodatabases and all stuff just to create outputs, which helps decision maker in making decisions. So this is one of the workflow that we are using. We have the other one, which is Saver workflow. This one also, we are using it currently, especially in the protection department, as I've said from the previous, that we have 22 national parks. With these 22 national parks, we need this workflow just to support the task of protection. So you can see here, we are collecting data using the modern devices, mobile devices like Trimble, TDCs. We are capturing information, then we are syncing them either real time or near real time. We collect information both offline and online to those parks which have no access to internet. So you can see this is an approach which is very useful. It helps us to reduce time, to retrieve the information from the field fast, high speed, secured. It reduces error, single source of common information. It's easy to access by everyone, everywhere. So you can see this one, it has helped us a lot. Let me go quickly to the innovation that we have done. We have done a lot of them. I just mentioned quickly. Let me go to the geodatabase. We have created geodatabases, which you can see here. We have ecology, protection, tourism, outreach, administration. So we have created several geodatabases that it's relational. So you can see that geodatabase. Let me jump to the web maps. We have created maps and then published them to the ArcGIS Online or to our portal. We have created these maps where users are accessing these maps using collectors. So when they are on the field, they download these maps using ArcGIS for collector, and then they start collecting information, and then they are syncing, as I've shown you from the workflow observer. Another thing that we have innovated using Esri product is web map application. From those web maps, we have added some functions, as you can see here. There are several widgets that we have put here just to support. Here we have created GIS champions whom have the role of making sure they are preparing reports. They are using these widgets like query, filter, analysis, different analysis, just to analyze and get the information. So you can see with these applications that we have created for each park, from each department, they are helpful in making easier decision makers just to decide well and to plan and predict. Let me go to another innovation that we have done. We have created dashboards. With Esri products, it's easy for us to connect what is being collected from the field or events to get them, and then to let the managers have the information from the ground in real time. So you can see some of the events like here, poachers information, type of patrol performed, if it's aerial, foot. So it's easier. You can get the information in a second, but these data are being collected there to the ground. Another thing, what I can show to you is creation of online survey 123. So these are some of the applications that we have done with Esri products. You can see here we have created online forms which are being used in ecology department just to collect information on the ground. You can see here we have Tanapa waste management. We have researchers' records, vegetation. So we are collecting several informations using ArcGIS Survey 123. These one are apps also. We create these online survey forms using Survey 123, but it's being accessed through the apps. Another thing is story maps. We have created story maps. From the previous, I've said one of the objectives for GIS is to make sure we are marketing our goods. Here, we have several attractions in our parks. Tanzania parks are so rich in attractions. We have several activities inside the park and accommodation. How the public to access. Then we have created these story maps so that we share them to the public so that the public can see. As we are speaking, already these are found in our website. You can go there and check. The use of GIS technology in wildlife protection. Elephants are ecosystem engineers. Since they modify the habitat so that other species can utilize, you can see elephant, many species follow elephants where they are going, because elephants, they fall down trees. So you see they clear the bushes. So I can say here they are ecosystem engineers. So in protection practice, you can see we are using these key species sometimes to follow them to understand what is going on. And because they are targeted, so we are using them. In the use of GIS technology in protection activities, let me just mention quickly. We are doing mapping of incidences. When people are patrolling, are coming with incidences. So it's easier for us to know poaching incidences that they are found there. It's help us in planning. GIS help us in planning, help us to identify poaching areas. Movement, as I've said, elephants, as I've said from the previous, elephants are very key species that are helping others. You can see here, we monitor movement of elephants, establishment of patrol blocks, measures the responsibility and accountability of park rangers. You can measure the efforts of the rangers, the way they are patrolling. So Let me just go quickly and show you some of the maps. Like this map, you can see distribution of elephants, movement of elephants. So we map this one, and they are very helpful. And in planning, it's easy someone to ask intelligence information. These, are they in intelligence lead or key animal species? Where are the key animal species? Poaching hotspot areas. These are information that are helping in planning the next patrol. You can see here, let me just go quickly because time is rushing. You can see this map. This map, some of the question, can pose some of the question here. You can ask yourself, why much concentration was outside the park? Is the patrol lead by intelligence information? What is the next patrol group plan? What are the targeted hotspot areas? Where are the key species? So you can see people are patrolling outside. Why are they patrolling? And I've shown you from this map, you can see elephants here. That's why I've said using GIS helps you to know why concentration was outside. So because there are key species outside, it's easier for someone to plan his patrols. You can see here efforts. You can see efforts of our rangers, how they have patrolled almost all the park for the month of June. They have covered every place, although they have concentrated on areas where there are key species there. So with the years helps you to plan your patrols, helps you to decide where to plan, where my next patrol is. Some of the challenges, I think they're common. You can see there, we have network connectivity for users, application in remote parks. You know, connectivity, our parks, most of them, they are in the remote areas. So we need connectivity. So sometimes the rangers maybe fail to collect the information in all days, in all time, you see, because these devices need connectivity, needs reliable power, budget for moving parallel with this changing technology. As we know now, we are talking of 10.9 at GIS desktop license. So moving with it needs budget. So these are just challenges. To wind up, GIS technology is crucial if you want to improve wildlife protection. GIS technology is crucial. And if you use well GIS, it will help you to decide well, to plan, and to predict what will happen. Thank you.
Thank you to our presenters there for the great presentations that they've given and the closing remarks that everyone has had about how ArcGIS has actually transformed the different workflows we had. So we've had a number of questions coming during the presentations. And I'd like to invite our presenters for the first session to just come in and join in to answer some of the questions we've gotten. So if our presenters could please turn on their cameras so that we could start the Q&A section. So I'll get some assistance from my colleague, Matt, on the questions that we've gotten, and then we can proceed to having them responded to by the panelists. Okay.
Thank you, Pauline. Thanks to everyone that's been submitting questions. You can continue to do that via the question box in the GoToWebinar panel. So I'll just share a summary of a few questions. I'll just merge them into one. This came in through two different presentations, and it was around what's the literacy level of the field teams and how much training did you have to do with your field teams to adopt some of these technologies?
Yes, I would suggest that Irene would respond to this, and then also Richard could also give his perspective from Tanaba.
Oh, thank you for this opportunity. Given that the rangers are already on the ground and they have been doing the patrols even previously as we implemented this system, it was easier for us to train them. We transferred all the forms that they used to have before to the survey 123, and then it was easier for them to go through the same process because it's a process that they were using before. It's only that they now started using a different application. And so training rangers didn't take a lot of time, and they were able to go test at first and feeding into the online system, and it worked quite fine, really. Like training, it wasn't as much as hard as we had thought before. And I think it's because they had the background information of the area they're working in.
Thank you. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, are you hearing me?
Yes, Richard, we can hear you clearly.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad to have this opportunity to engage in this summit. For us, as an organization, it's easier. Every year we budget for training, for building capacities for our rangers, and we conduct this training by using GIS team that we have. As I've already said from the presentation, that we have 5 GIS staffs. So we move from every area, we go where the rangers are, we train them, and some of the trainings we conduct by calling them, some of them we have entitled them to GIS champions. They are the champions. So we train them in different levels. We train them on the level of using the gadgets to the field, and we train them on how to use applications that we are creating. And at the end, we give them the feedbacks. When we are giving them the feedbacks, it's where now we see what they are failing on doing in the field. What are the problems they're encountering? So we solve some of the problems by using those approaches that I've said. Thank you.
Thank you. So these 2 questions came from Susan during Elizabeth's presentation, so I'll just sort of merge them together. One was around the dashboards you showed, Elizabeth, and can they show actual data versus any goals that you may have? And then a broader question around how do you sort of quality control the data that's coming in, and how do you check the valid, the valid inputs? I guess, Elizabeth, you can take that one directly, if that's okay with Pauline.
Sure. Yes, so for the first point about the dashboards, they do show data in real time after quality control. So we'll get to that in just a second. And there is kind of an option within some of the features, which is kind of, if you're including it in the serial chart feature, you can have like a guide that you list at a certain amount, which will give you a line on that graph. And you'll see your kind of relationship of your real data to that target. That's the only option I know of within the dashboards feature at this point that allows you to have, targets and goals. There's also, I think, the gauges where you could, design it in such a way that you're showing progress towards a target. The dashboards I found are really customizable. So I do think if you are willing to spend the time kind of playing around with the different features and different options, you could find a way to do a lot of indicator tracking. As for your second question, for some of our data that we want to have a quality control on, we have the data coming in from a live survey 123 form into a feature layer. And I added a column to that feature layer from the desktop version that's called review and response, 2 columns. So I review each line of data, and this is, not for every one of our data collection forms, but for those that we feel we need a quality control, like individual conflict events, for instance. I will review a line of data, see if there's anything questionable, whether it's an error in the GIS or the GPS point, or if there's just something really unrealistic, like number of livestock attacked is over 100 or something, then I might question that. I can write a question in the review column, and somebody else from the monitoring and evaluation team then can call the officer and write a response in the response column. I have the dashboards right now filtered to only select or to only show data from lines within that feature layer or from rows within that feature layer that don't have a review or a response. In other words, it's showing data that have been approved for or that have already been cleaned.
Great. Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
And then once that comment has been resolved, I would remove that comment, and then that particular line of data would feed back into the dashboard.
Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. Sorry, there was a delay there. I didn't mean to cut you off at the end. Thanks for that answer. One here, I guess, is to everyone around the changing types of technology. So I think a couple of you mentioned, Elizabeth, I know you did sort of the journey of technology over the past few years. And Tom's question is, there's always new technology coming. How do you ensure that technology is sustainable, but also compatible? I know that's a very broad question, so maybe just some high-level thoughts from you each. Irene, why don't you go first?
Well, first, I must say we are always very hesitant when change comes, but once we take over, like we accept the change, that we move in with it. Now, given an example of how the technology is changing quite fast, we are also trying to keep up with the change because we want to make sure that we are maximizing on the technology and making sure that we maximize on the resources and save on time, save on human staff as well. And so for this particular scenario, in terms of GIS and technology, the way it's changing is we have different programs as well that we work with. So we sort of test in one region and then we apply in the next region. And some of the I wouldn't say that every time a new application comes in, we jump into it, no, because there's already some workflows going on with the current workflow or current program. So we sort of transition gradually, and also where a need is. For example, right now we are in TrackJS Online, and most of our programs, because of the global region we touch, we make sure that everything is online, just to make sure that we can reach each other and collaborate through the online systems.
Thank you, Irene. Elizabeth?
Sure. Yeah, I laugh because that really is a constant challenge for us, I think, is keeping up with the newest technology, and not necessarily us in the office all the time on the back end, but with our field teams. I think it's more likely changes in the technology are more likely to affect the field teams, who may have less familiarity with different technologies and less ability to troubleshoot in the field. So something that we try to do internally is when we know that there's an upcoming, an update to one of the apps or a change to the technology or just something new we want to try, we run it through, a full program basically internally first, so that we're really aware of how this will affect the users on the end. In other words, our field teams. From there, we try to reduce the number of changes or the difficulty of changes that the field teams might see. So for instance, if there's a way that we can create a formula or something on the back end that might cause perhaps a little bit more work for us in the office, but will not affect how the field team users see the survey form or see something on that end, we found that to be more successful. And again, I think there are some times we have to troubleshoot on a larger scale, and if that's the case, we end up doing, another training.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. And finally, Richard, just your quick thoughts on that, and then we'll move on. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. On our side, yeah, that one have remained still have remained a problem, a challenge. But for us, every change once they come, we see those features which for us
will affect us on our daily operations, or if there are features that won't affect us, then we leave them. For those features which we think they are going to improve our systems, we go for it. So sometimes we pay for these upgrades once they come, and we attend these user conferences where we get what is going on this new technology that's arising. But many times we see the features that are found on those new versions that are coming. If they are affecting our systems, then we upgrade them. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. That's all we have time for questions. We'll reply to the others afterwards. Pauline, back to you.
Thanks to everyone for your presentations and the responses you've given. And to the organizations also that you work with for allowing us to have the information that you wanted to share with us. So in case there are any other questions that you've not addressed, we will be able to send responses on email. So in case you have any questions, again, please use the Q&A module and we'll address them by email. So with that, we'll transition on to the next poll question, which I believe Raquel will just pull up the next question. And we'll give you a few seconds to respond to them, just based on the presentations we have seen from Irene, from Richard, and from Elizabeth. What would you say is your primary role in conservation? We're seeing a lot of presence here by people who are providing tech support around this. A number of researchers, people in ecology, community development, looking into economics of conservation. Some field workers. Also a few administrators and people on the executive role. Okay, that's good. That's good to see that a number of you fall within the categories that we hope to address during this summit. And we hope that the subsequent presentations will also be informative to you and your work.